Hey, it's Michael J. And just recently, an old movie came on the TV, and it was a beach party movie with Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon. And it got me thinking that I have this book on my shelf called Faster and Furiouser, and it's a history of American International Pictures. That's the company that produced the beach party movies with Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon. And so I opened up this book and was looking through, and of course, this was the company that arrived in the 1950s and was the most important studio that made B movies for teenagers, basically. And of course, all of this trashy fodder they put out over 3 decades was the stuff of the drive-in movie theaters and the Saturday matinees, and they were famous for putting together the double feature of 2 trashy films for the price of 1. So here is a retrospective of the wonderful cult movies of American International Pictures. American International Pictures was formed in 1954 by James H. Nicholson and Samuel Z. Arkoff. Nicholson was a former sales manager for Real Art Pictures, and Arkoff was an entertainment lawyer. The typical project method was to come up with a sensational title, then get an artist like Albert Callis to make a dynamic poster, then raise the money. Once the money was in place, lastly a script was written to match the title and poster. Roger Corman, famous as one of the greatest B-movie producer-directors of all time, was able to make a movie in 5 to 10 days. The only way to do it on an AIP budget, which was about $65,000, when the average studio movie cost $6 million. Through Corman's production company, Palo Alto Productions, he was seeking distribution for his film, The Fast and the Furious. He had several offers, but he went with AIP because they offered in advance to enable him to make 2 more pictures. The success of the distribution led Corman to become AIP's top producer-director. One of the 2 new films was a Western, but AIP was realizing that they couldn't compete with TV Westerns without a bigger budget, so they turned to monster movies. Corman's second film came from one of Nicholson's sensational ideas, The Beast with a Million Eyes. Paul Blaisdell created the loony-looking creatures for a lot of the AIP monster movies. An innovation in film distribution came with the idea to plan a double feature as a package deal. They'd come up with complementary and contrasting ideas, such as a Western with a monster movie, or a Corman film like It Conquered the World with the She-Creature. Lou Russoff's Girls in Prison, directed by Edward L. Kahn, was an example of AIP's philosophy to present controversial themes. Teens Gone Wild films were always part of the production schedule.
I'm just a clean-living, fun-loving American delinquent.
The company realized that the teen market was huge, and that the big studios and TV programs were mostly ignoring this new consumer base. AIP figured the average teenager was interested in rebellion and sex, so they made films to satisfy that curiosity. Herman Cohen proved to be an important producer for AIP with his outlandish I Was a Teenage Werewolf, which featured a young Michael Landon. A series of teenage monster movies followed with good business at the box office. I Was a Teenage Werewolf's companion film for the double feature was a science fiction story, Invasion of the Saucermen, produced by Robert Gummy.
Hello, police headquarters? This is Carter, Johnny Carter.
Oh, sure, they're from another planet.
What a dilemma for young lovers Steve Terrell and Gloria Castillo.
Some of the other fun titles of this era were The Amazing Colossal Man, High School Hellcats.
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that's biology.
What should a girl do? Join up with the gang or go it alone?
A maniac who wants to make you a plaything. And the fearsome fact is, he knows how to do it.
And Attack of the Puppet People.
Why, I'm your friend.
How would you like to be a living doll? This madman can do with as he pleases. A monster his own woman had reason to flee.
AIP's formula was so successful that other companies were starting to copy it. The competition made AIP rethink their business model, and they began distributing foreign films and dubbing them in English. The Italian sword and sandal movies like Goliath and the Barbarians did extremely well.
Goliath, who dared gamble his fantastic strength against wild horses in the flesh-tearing test of truth. Goliath, the dream of desire of every woman in the land. The talented and sought-after dancing's wisdom.
Who are you?
Only to find herself enslaved by a passion beyond her control.
In the 1960s, AIP brought two really distinct types of films to audiences. Perhaps the most successful at the time, and even now in retrospect in terms of the lasting effects on popular culture, were the beach party films, starring Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon.
That's a game for me and you now. Yeah, let's give it a whirl. Beach blanket bingo. Beach blanket bingo. Beach blanket bingo. That's the name of the game.
These films were silly, innocent fun, full of pop music, dancing, and notable showbiz personalities filling out the cast.
I'm determined to prove that you young people are borderline cases leaning toward feeble-mindedness.
The war's begun! Oh, wait a minute, Fanny!
Okay, fellas, come on, we're ready. Come on.
Onward!
Then love, a secret weapon. Yes, love, a secret weapon. Vacation is here, beach party tonight.
Just if the school books out of reach, we're gonna go to Bikini Beach. That's it. That's right. That's the name of that's the name of that's the name of the game.
Corman made a series of films based on Edgar Allan Poe stories, such as The Pit and the Pendulum, House of Usher, and The Raven. A lot of these films would feature actors who were notable, but past their prime. People like Boris Karloff, Vincent Price, and Peter Lorre. Other actors got their start with AIP, such as Peter Fonda, Bruce Dern, Nancy Sinatra, and Diane Ladd in The Wild Angels, a Corman film exploiting the idea of the Hells Angels. This film was so successful that naturally, a series of motorcycle gang films followed.
They're wild and no angels, law-defying, getting their kicks from violence and torture. The Wild Angels, starring Peter Fonda and Nancy Sinatra. In the Angel Gang, if you're one man's woman, you're his old lady.
Well, because the way I used to be and all, you know. I just figured that you thought I...
You talk too much.
Yeah, we don't want nobody telling us what to do. We don't want nobody pushing us around.
Just what is it that you want to do?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man.
The last round of 60s films focused on the youth drug movement, psychedelic and hippie stories. Finishing out this era was Wild in the Streets.
Starring Shelley Winters.
I've been under the care of an LSD therapist.
Christopher Jones. Diane Varsi. Al Holbrook. Richard Pryor. And guest star Ed Begley.
You raised up this monster at your rally. Your idea, Belli. Now, you two make your shaggy little monster behave and then get rid of him.
We suggest that the required age for a representative be 14.
It was about a young rock and roll star who becomes president of the United States.
We're gonna make 30, a mandatory retirement age. We're gonna psych them all out on LSD, babies.
Everyone over 40 is made to retire to concentration camps and drink water laced with LSD. This ludicrous story has become a cult classic favorite. AIP was one of the most stable film production companies in Hollywood at the beginning of the 1970s, but there was upheaval. Nicholson divorced his wife, which split his shares in the company. As he was no longer on equal footing with Arkoff, the relationship became strained. Nicholson set up his own production company with 20th Century Fox, but was not successful. He died of a brain tumor in 1972. Arkoff continued on to the end of the decade, putting out gangster, kung fu, and blaxploitation films.
That one chick hit squad who creamed you as coffee is back to do a job on the mob as Foxy Brown.
Sounds like a public menace.
Sure do.
A chick with drive who don't take no jive. Touch of spice.
If you see a man anywhere, send him in, because I do need a man.
As he put it, AIP was the Woolworths of film production. But Woolworths was getting priced out, and in 1979, he sold the company to Filmways Incorporated, bringing an end to American International Pictures as it had been known. American International Pictures held its own during the center of the 20th century by finding the audience that Hollywood ignored.